Today's stream, today is the 16th of April. 2 days stream starting at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is GMT minus 5. I am going to be doing a restream with the Black Site boys for the game World War Z, which launches today. So we have an exclusive restream going on with Epic Games themselves, of which I am running from 11 a.m. Eastern until 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we have a 4-hour block where we're going to be getting right into World War Z. I can tell you so far with delving into that game that it has been a lot of fun, and I would highly recommend coming and checking that out. Maybe you'll find something that you enjoy. Good morning, everybody. My name is Onepeg MG, and this is the news. In today's news broadcast, we're going to go over the known keycard locations for the red and blue keys on Shoreline, as well as some information regarding some task updates. As always, I would ask that if you find this information even remotely valuable to you, that you please come and check me out on Twitch. I am, as of now, 2 weeks ago, a full-time content creator as of April 1st, the longest-running April Fool's joke ever, and I would be overjoyed if you guys would stop by and come say hi. But anyway, on to the news at hand. For those of you unfamiliar with the patch, we had a patch that came out about a week ago today, actually, that had to do with a lot of different updates and changes, most of which I ended up criticizing. The most recent video I did, other than this one, had to do with 11.7 changes and how I viewed this as a rather large step back. But it seems as though Battlestate is trying to put some movement in the right direction. The largest criticism that I really had to do with the task system and this whole mechanic of having to find items in Raid, which on the surface didn't seem like it was such a bad thing until you got into the aspects of the actual tasks and realized, oh, this is going to be a huge pain in the butt. Since that time, it seems like Battlestate has made some rather large modifications to the tasks themselves. However, there are still some find in Raid tasks left. These being that you have to find in Raid 10 lower half masks. For one of the tasks that Prapper has, you have to, at one point in time, had to hand in 10 lower half masks from scavs that were apparently killed. Of course, you could buy these off of the flea market and then just kind of cheese the task, but now it appears that you still have to find those 10 lower half masks. That really isn't such a big deal. And there are other ones, like you have to find 5 wires in a raid, or 5 capacitors, or 3 antique teapots, or 2 antique vases, which are all things that are possibly able to be found in certain lootable rooms of places like Shoreline, for instance. But that's where the realistic capabilities of this task kind of end. In addition to this, there are things like you have to find 3 ophthalmoscopes in a raid, also possible on Shoreline, more possible on the labs, which, again, one key is 115,000 rubles, approximately. And yeah, you can find them on things like scav bosses, but how often do people genuinely come across a scav boss, kill them easily, and extract with the key? I would argue it doesn't happen as often as people would like it to. This is further exacerbated by some labs-only requirements, like finding 3 LEDXs, finding 2 military wireless signal transmitters, or finding 3 Vertex programmable processors, 2 UHF RFID readers, and 2 flash storage modules. I've made videos on the labs on how to find all of these items, but I can count on one hand the number of LEDXs I found in the entire duration of last patch when we had open access to the labs and it didn't cost 115,000 rubles just to enter and didn't have a 3-hour cooldown timer on the vendors themselves. Absolutely, you could do bartering on the flea market to get additional keys, but if we look at this with any objective eye whatsoever, in order to find these items, it's probably going to cost upwards of 10 to 15 million rubles just in entry fees in order to be able to find these items. And yes, they're absolutely rare, but given the access that people have and the amount of money in circulation, it's not really a realistic premise to say that you could necessarily afford the ability to just buy all of these items. Even if you could, you still have to find them in the lab somewhere. And even extremely proficient players like Pestily have had a very, very hard time with this. I'm all for challenging tasks and the ability to get late game unlocks having taken a while and making it a grind. The only issue with this is, again, mechanics like this alienate the casual player. This is made worse by the fact that you have to find them in the raid. The mechanic in which of finding them isn't the problem. I would be completely fine with being able to, at a lower level, go into labs, try my hand on it, maybe I get lucky and I find a couple of these items. That would be great. But the task itself won't credit me for having found them in advance. There is no mechanic currently in the game that will credit anyone for finding anything in advance of actually having the task on your docket. And that, I think, is an inherent failure. That is a fault of this system. These items are so overwhelmingly rare and unlikely to be found. For someone to not gain credit for that just because they haven't gotten the task yet, if only to be forced then to sell it on the flea market or hold it for barter, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Especially given that almost all of these items that are to be found in the late game are all single square items that could easily fit into any secure container, save for that of the wireless signal transmitter. The rest of these are all single square items. So if they're that easily obtained and gotten out of raid, why then wouldn't you just credit somebody for finding them in advance? It doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of sense. I'll leave this up to you guys to decide. That's kind of my take on it. Anyway, let's move on to the other piece of today's news. That is the location of the 3 spawns for the red keycard and the 2 known spawns for the blue keycards. All of these keys are located on Shoreline. For the red keys, it is East 218, West 218, 221, or 222. All 3 of those rooms are connected via a balcony, but you will need a key to get into those. As well as in the basement, the weight room, where the old Arsenal security key used to spawn, now in the locker. Although this last one is super questionable. There have only been a few reports of people saying they actually found them in a locker, and the most recent messages that I have gotten from people regarding this location specifically have said that it's fake. So I don't know if this one's actually real or if it's a meme. For the blue keys, they have 2 known spawns. That is West 104, of which you will need a key in order to be able to enter, as well as outside in front of the resort in one of the ambulances, there is an ajar door, and on the step of the ambulance, there is another known key spawn. Now, I would recommend running and hitting each one of these in succession if you're trying to farm it, as well as stopping by 310. Right now, the 310 and 306 keys for the East Wing are extremely inexpensive and have some very, very, very good loot spawns. Right now, the 310 key, I think, is going for somewhere around 75-ish thousand rubles, if not less, and that has extremely lucrative loot spawns inside of it. Even now, I can attest, even for myself, I have found vases, Bitcoin, lions, clocks, roosters, you name it. There is money to be made, absolutely, from that key. Very, very, very well worth it. Lastly, I would recommend that you guys at least take the time to loot other things along the way. Don't just try and run for the keys and then suicide or death by scav or whatever it is that you're planning on doing if you're trying to do these crazy farm runs. If you're really trying to grind on this, grab some things in between to at least have made some money on these runs to begin with, and that way you could afford to maybe bring in a kit of gear and do a full run through, maybe even get some tasks done along the way. Would be a crazy thought, right? All right, guys, as always, thank you so much for all of your support. It has been overwhelmingly awesome, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks.